Welcome to Agile Fundamentals and Beyond, the series that helps you understand the fundamentals of Agile and some by asking the questions that everybody wants answered.
Hi, I'm Jim Wyllie.
And I'm David Lowe, and today we'll be asking about the Agile Manifesto's core values, starting with number 1. So Jim, come on then, tell us, what is the first core value of the Agile Manifesto?
Well, we're talking today about individuals and interactions over processes and tools. That's the topic for today.
And when you say this, one story that of a meeting where we were both there springs straight into my mind. I wonder if we've got the same thing in our heads. Come on, then, tell me a story about individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
So it wouldn't happen to be the one where one of the meeting attendees came along with a problem. So I think we were holding a community practice meeting, possibly. Yeah, you're nodding. I think it is the same one. So yes, we're holding a community practice meeting. One of the members of the community brings a problem along. And their problem is that they need something from somebody, but that person hasn't responded. So naturally I know. Such a shame. But we've asked this person, so how did you engage? Well, I stuck a ticket into Jira and I assigned it to them and they never responded, was the answer.
Yes, that is the same story I was thinking of, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, so after, I guess, having to hold our tongues a little bit on that one, we did, of course, work through the problem and obviously help that person to understand why simply doing that was not going to encourage that person to engage with them and therefore help them to solve the problem that they had.
So how does that story, Jim, relate to the individuals and interactions over processes and tools core value?
Well, the solution that we finally got to with that particular person was that it was probably fine for him to create a Jira ticket, but that maybe should have happened after a face-to-face conversation with the person that he needed help from. And in relation to the kind of the value statement in itself, having that kind of interaction between those two individuals, rather than just moving straight to which tool can I use to try and communicate with, is how we kind of relate it back to the value statement that we said at the beginning. So it was important for him to be able to understand that individuals and their interactions were more important than the recording of that in some sort of tool. And following a process that perhaps had been laid out for him.
And as we often say, and we did in the previous recording, that this is not saying that there's no importance on processes and tools, right?
Exactly. I mean, those sorts of things, email, we use Jira in this case, but any kind of agile lifecycle management tool, they're great ways of recording the outcomes of those interactions between individuals, those face-to-face conversations, those telephone conversations, the Zoom conversations that we're having these days. It's a good way to document decisions and agreements that we've made, but it is useless as the primary method of communication, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, we want to understand customers' needs, right? And how we can actually help satisfy those customers' needs and things like that. So there's massive benefit of this interactions with customers or our users, whatever you want to call them, but there's benefits internally as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We dramatically reduce communication waste if we're effective in doing that from the very beginning. Taking you back to my example from the start here, how much time do you think that particular person wasted trying to get their needs met because they didn't communicate effectively? I'd imagine it was somewhere in the order of months. So simply having the right conversations at the right time, putting face-to-face communication at the forefront of the way in which we operate with each other and collaborate with each other is essential to making sure we don't waste time and that we get a shared understanding of the work that we want to achieve.
Jim, let's have some fun. Okay. The Agile Manifesto's core values are supported by 12 principles. What I would like you to do is to pick 3 of those principles that you think most relate to this first core value of individuals and interactions over processes and tools. While Jim is thinking about this, you can also play along at home by going to agilemanifesto.org /principles and choosing 3 of those principles that you think are most relevant. Jim, do you need me to pause time?
No, I think I have my 3. Thank you very much.
Okay, right. I've also written 3 down already. So let's see what you've got.
Okay, all right. So the first one from me is business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. So that's the first
I have
one.
exactly the same one there. So good, we're in alignment there.
Excellent, okay. Second one I chose was the most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation.
Maybe an easy one, right? It's even got face-to-face communication in there. But yeah, I also had that.
We've been chatting about
it's going to be a bit boring if we have exactly the same 3, right? But go on.
I think the last one will be different. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then choose and adjust its behaviour accordingly.
Well, I had that on my as a potential. I must admit, I had 5 that I picked to start with, and then whittled it down. I went with build projects around motivated individuals, give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. Okay.
What made you choose that last one then?
Not just because it had the word individuals in it, right? But there's a core part of this which is about trusting the people and getting them motivated. So having those conversations and people understanding why it is that they're doing this thing, giving them the fundamental part of this is the purpose that we have, right? And Dan Pink, lots of people will have read Dan Pink's Drive. One of the 3 main things that motivate us, according to him and many other people who've written about this, is having a purpose, right? The reason we're doing these things. If we're just doing it for the money, right, our patience and our enthusiasm quickly wears out. But having a reason why we're doing it is really important. And I think this is only achieved by having those conversations, by individuals and interactions, not by processes and tools. If you're given something to do, right, and told to get on with it, there's no motivation in that, right?
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, I could easily have chosen that one, I think, as well. I went for the last one because, or the one that I said about reflecting regularly, because, you know, fundamentally at the core of agility is inspect and adapt. And I think this one refers to inspecting and adapting how we work and how we work together. And I think that's much easier. I don't know how you'd do that if you weren't doing it face to face. But also it allows us to inspect and adapt around those ways that we are communicating. So perhaps we can reflect and say, well, look, there is a bit of communication waste here. You know, before we just stick that ticket into whatever ALM tool we're using, let's have that conversation. Let's do a power of 3. Let's talk to the customer and try and identify some need.
So if people listening to this or watching this had other principles, they are also right as well.
Absolutely. I think all of these are relevant to that first failure of the manifesto. All of them are. All of them are related in some way.
Right. Now, this is all very good and sensible in theory. Yeah? But when we come to actually do the stuff and try to live this way or perform in these ways, we come across some problems, right?
We do, yeah. There are challenges. Some people aren't as comfortable in face-to-face conversations as others. That's certainly true. There may be ingrained cultures in organizations where email is that primary method of communication. I know I send a lot of email every day, but I always try and do so off the back of a communication. So I'm backing up what I've said face to face or over the phone with an email that just, as per our conversation, and we confirming what we're saying there. But yeah, some people just like documenting things, and that's not a bad thing. But again, we're just trying to make sure we've got that shared understanding of what it is that we are eventually writing down. That's the important thing.
I remember a person at a meetup we met, and we were talking about how to use tooling. It was a particularly exciting session, and I remember them saying that they just write stuff on post-it notes, and then at the end, once they've finished it, they throw it away. And I remember the reaction from a lot of people in the room going, "But hang on. So you write the things you're going to do down on a sticky note, and then you put them up on the wall. And when you've finished with them, you just throw them away. But where do you record the stuff, right? Once it's finished. And then their response was, well, what do you mean? Why do I need to record it? In the end, we look at our product or service or whatever it was they were doing. And if it's there and working, then it's done. And if it's not, then it should be on the to-do list, or maybe on the to-do list, right? It's a simple way. We don't need a massively overcomplicated list of stuff that we've done that we're never going to look back at.
Yeah. So the product itself, the working software in production, is in fact the record of what we've done. Yeah. And again, just to hammer home though, David, before we move on, we aren't saying that you shouldn't document stuff. We aren't saying that you shouldn't use these tools. We are saying that they're useful, but we're also saying that they shouldn't be used in isolation. Have the conversation first. And
you decide how much you want to use them, right? Rather than starting off with the point of, we're going to use this tool, that's our starting point. That doesn't make sense. Good, okay. And also we should just cover off, because remote tools, you mentioned Zoom earlier, lots of people use Slack, all of these things. When the Agile Manifesto was written in 2001, nearly 20 years ago, we didn't have the tools that we've got available now, right? So face-to-face communication meant in the same room. You could argue that the stuff we're doing now, we're face-to-face, right? We talk a lot, and we haven't actually met each other for quite a while, but we're still talking face-to-face, aren't we?
We are, absolutely. I think the kind of modern communication tools are fantastic. We would have been crashing and burning in flames during this pandemic if we hadn't had tools like Zoom, like Skype, and probably many others. Instant messaging tools are equally useful for very kind of short, quick bits or sound bites, but again, the written word can be taken out of context, it can be misunderstood. It's far better just to jump on a quick Zoom call and just say, so what was that? What did you mean? Can you be clearer, and see that person explain it to you?
Yeah, access might be improved in the tools we've got at the moment. And also there's other added benefits, right? Don't need to smell you because I'm not in the same room as you, right? Stuff like that.
Well, that's, there is that, yeah.
Good, so in summary, Jim, how can people live this core value?
Well, one word, talk, basically, is what I'd say. There are frameworks that you can use to help you. Scrum's a great framework for that. We have planning sessions, daily scrums, retrospectives, sprint reviews. There's all forums for communication and collaboration, and that's laid out in a lovely cadence for you to be able to use to drive that communication, that collaboration. You could probably start to think and evolve those things for yourself in some way. I remember you saying you worked with a client that, was it called FICA, something like that? Can you talk us through that very quickly?
Yeah, so FICA is making time for friends and colleagues to share a cup of coffee or tea over cake, I think, or something like that, with a little something to eat, I think is probably the translation. But yeah, it's about having those conversations with people, and it was a mixture of work and other stuff that's going on. So building psychological safety is one of the byproducts of that. But also having those conversations about stuff when you're just focused on the work all of the time. Sometimes you get bogged down, whereas actually when you start talking about it in a different environment, other things that you might not have covered can spring out.
Cool. So how can people find out more?
People can find out more by going to scrumandkanban.co.uk and having a look at our blogs. So we've got a blog covering what we've just talked about over this, but also linking to some other interesting resources. Right, if you want more confidence in applying the fundamentals of Agile, then sign up to our mailing list at scrumandkanban.co.uk for free guides, such as our 6-step guide to implementing Agile successfully, for details of our bite-sized courses, our certified training, and loads of other free goodies. If you like this, then please give us a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss the next editions. And let us know what you want us to cover in future videos by leaving us a comment. Great. Well, that's all, folks, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye.